Hey you! Yeah, you. Do you know about the Nivkh people that live on the lower Amur River on the island of Sakhalin? Well, now you do. And I'm taking it upon myself to educate you on them further. Like, did you know they were originally called the Gilyaks? And did you know that's more or less not easier to say than Nivkh? More facts like this and better coming on this episode of Ethnograthon.
Come through bumping that new funkadelic. That new funkadelic. Come through bumping that new funkadelic.
So like, how do we start talking about these funky fresh foreigners? How about in the coolest way we possibly can? A detailed description of their native land and labor organizations. The Gili... They live on the lower side of Russia along the Amur River on the island of Sakhalin, like I said earlier. And their primary land? The taiga. Whoa! Leave some room for me, guys! Their choices for land primarily focused on a first come, first served type of system, with more of a focus on hunting and fishing spots than anything else. As for their way of life, they primarily focus on ways to exploit the environment without destroying it. When it comes to resources, their main home squeeze comes in with fishing and sea mammal hunting, with land mammal hunting and natural resource gathering coming in as supplementary sources of subsistence and wealth. So you're telling me that hunting and gathering pretty much served as their main sources of income? Yes. But let's take a second to look away from their relations with the land to focus on something a bit more interesting. Their relations with their neighbors. More specifically, the Ainu people. Now, the Ainus were a pretty docile group, wanting to help out the Nivkh in any way they could. That usually resulted in a lot of grunt work around the house and getting the fishing traps ready for the Nivkh hunters. And you know, they were usually forced into these positions after their homes were raided. They were forcefully taken from their families. They were slaves. Alright, so let's get into the nitty-gritty details of the Nivkh religious beliefs and rituals. And trust me, they're radical. But let's start at the basis of these bodastic beliefs. The universe itself. The Nivkh basically think of the universe as this all-encompassing thing that falls under the righteous term of Kurd. Kurd encompasses the idea of a high god, a creator, and a far and distant god. That's all Kurd, baby! The universe that we see, feel, and taste is only the remnants of divine essence. Kurd is everywhere, in everything, bro. They believe the universe is divided along the vertical axis into three parts: the world of the sky, the world of the earth, and the world of the dead. With the world of the earth also being split into a trichotomy of the land, sea, and skies, each with its own respective master, who come into play with a majority of the Nivkh ideas of soul. Speaking of the soul, the Nivkh believe that a child's soul is sent to enter the mother's womb, either sent by the master of the mountain or forest, or by the master of the waters. The soul is known as the Chengen or Chechen, and sometimes as it's the core of everything for their lives, and they believe it as a double, with a larger and smaller soul in play, much like a yin and a yang. Alright, so that's a brief overview of their religion. But let's take another very important look at an important aspect of the Nivkh culture, and the reason I'm even doing this in the first place. The Bear Festival! The Bear Festival was the final act in the long cycle of funerary ceremonies, and it signaled the restoration of order that had been disturbed by death. The bears served the need of being sacrificed after either being taken in and cared for in the village, or just being killed in the forest. They also believed that the killer whale, aka the coolest animal ever, had the same purpose as the bear, and is also used in the same way, except, it dies a lot faster because it's on land. During the bear ritual, a bear is brought up in the village by local women and shamans, and raised like a child. During the actual ceremony, The shaman's responsibility is to have the bear dressed in special garments and fed a banquet that is to serve a sign of benevolence among the clan to the gods in the afterlife. The bear is then fed to wolves, and the wolves are then eaten by the Nivkh. Ain't that just crazy? Our author for this extreme ethnographic piece was Lydia Black, and she described the Nivkh way of belief as an unending cycle of reciprocity and exchange. In this regard, she is laying down a belief that the Nivkh people believe that there is a natural way to everything in the world, and they are a part of that natural order. This order is shown respect time and time again, as the Nivkh will often honor the animals slain during their hunting expeditions, doing things such as bringing the bones of these animals back to the ocean so that they can be preserved for future generation and preservation of the species. Gnarly! Now this most righteous interpretation of the Nivkh beliefs by our dudette, Lydia Black, most accurately follows a lot of hypotheses tested by our bodacious bros, Stedman and Palmer. More specifically, their sociological interpretation of societal behavior. This is easy to see when you look at our Nivkh broski's passing down of traditions and beliefs to generation after generation. And if that's not the most kick-ass thing that you've heard today, then there's something wrong with you. Actually, there's something wrong with you. Get yourself checked, because that is cool as. Now I believe without a shadow of a doubt, Ski, that this is a primo example of Stead Dude and Paul Bro's interpretation of religious behavior. And what my sentiment should be enough to convince you, because, you know, I'm cool, sick, smart, and humble, that's just not the way the world works, broski. Now let's take a most righteous look at the key components of religious behavior and make sure that the Nivkh people do in fact follow these guidelines of religious belief. Now first we have to prove that there's a claim that is unverifiable by the senses. And while I'd like to bring up the point of birds flying into the horizon into different universes, that can easily be debunked by the senses if you just get in a boat. Just go, man. That is, unless the government has been lying to us. But to find that unverifiable claim, we need to look no further than the all-encompassing awesomeness that is Kern! By believing in the unconfirmable cosmic power that is Kern, the Nivkh people show that they are willing to believe a claim that is unverifiable by the senses in the form of an all-encompassing invisible power, otherwise known as Kern! Boom! That's one. Next, we need a form of verifiable acceptance of this claim. Either vocal or, you could say, passing down traditions from generation to generation, along with knowledge about this religious belief. But you really need to look no further than their traditions. Through their bear festival, which is a reflection of these bodacious Kern beliefs, you can see the communicated acceptance of these claims in physical form. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I just blow your mind? That's just the power of Kern, baby. The Nivkh traditions and beliefs lie on the shoulders of their shamans. And if you've been focusing in class for the past half a semester, you know exactly where I'm going with this. And if you haven't, or you just aren't in my class because I decided to upload this video unlisted for some reason, then what's up? You probably have no idea what I'm talking about. And that's okay. No, it's not. It's not. It's not okay. Shamans! Now, Stedman and Palmer believe that the proximate hypothesis of shamans is to communicate a willingness to give up their body for the sake of an audience. And this is exemplified beautifully with shamans having to perform some of the most crucial elements of the Bear Festival. or the passing down of their most animalistic beliefs. But what about the ultimate hypothesis of Steadboy and Armin Palmer? They believe that the end goal of shamans is to integrate traditional beliefs and social norms along with knowledge of social behavior, along with getting an understanding of current circumstances in order to push for a better understanding of their culture for future generations. And while the Nivkh tendency to do so is undeniable through their actions in the Bear Festival and overall animalistic worldview, their real-world applicability of the subject is a bit questionable in terms of effectiveness. I mean, due to the fact that they were pretty much forced to assimilate with modern society and it was made illegal to even celebrate their beliefs, the Nivkh people started to die out. It's honestly a really sad story. But hey, at least their beliefs follow Stedman and Palmer's interpretation of the function of religious behavior. Lydia Black's chance to write about the Nivkh people in their prime is something that should be held in high regard and very much so appreciated. And I think it's worth breaking character to say that. This is a group that can never be this way again. And it almost makes you feel bad for them until you remember that they owned human slaves, so you don't really feel bad for them, but then you remember that all aspects of your culture don't necessarily hinge on the labor of slaves, so you start to feel bad. It's a very tricky situation. To focus back on Stedman and Palmerino, although the Nivkh culture is on a hard decline, they were able to confirm many hypotheses that Stedman and Palmer had about religious behavior and beliefs. And while we can never properly look at the lives of the Nivkh people again, it's nice to know that through the labors of people like Lydia Black and Stedman and Palmer, we can have a proper interpretation of what their culture was like. And I think there's some beauty in that. This has been the first and last episode of Ethnograthon. Have a good night. Stedman and Palmer. Do you even know who Stedman and Palmer are? I bet you don't. They're pretty underground, you know? Their old stuff's a lot better than their new stuff.